My next guest, always a pleasure to visit, with Senator Ted Cruz. And Senator Cruz, welcome to the Chad Hasty Show. How are you this evening?
Chad, I'm doing terrific. It's always great to be with you.
Well, it's a pleasure having you on, and there's so many things we could talk about. I think that we should first talk about something that happened today in Washington, D.C. I know that you were hearing some of the testimony today from Capitol Police and security about what happened on January 6th. What did you take away from the testimony today?
Well, it was an important hearing today. We heard from the former chief of police of the Capitol Police. We heard from the sergeant at arms in the Senate and the sergeant at arms in the House, and then we heard from the acting chief of police in the D.C. Metro Police. And their testimony described what occurred in the lead up to January 6th, and then what occurred on the day of January 6th when we faced a horrific terrorist attack on the U.S. Capitol. In hindsight, all of the law enforcement leaders recognized that we needed to have done a substantially better job surging law enforcement presence and ensuring that the Capitol was secure. And everyone at the hearing recognized and saluted the incredible heroism and courage and bravery that we saw from the men and women of law enforcement on that day. But some of what we heard is how the chief of police of the Capitol Police had asked 2 days earlier for National Guard presence to help secure the Capitol, and that unfortunately that request was denied by the Sergeant at Arms of the House and the Sergeant at Arms of the Senate. And then we also heard testimony that during the attack, again, the chief of the Capitol Police asked for National Guard support, and that request, that it was delayed being granted. It took several hours before they got there, and I think there's still serious questions to be raised as to why the National Guard support was denied. What the chief of Capitol Police said is that the Sergeant at Arms of the House said it was because of the optics, that they thought it would look bad. That's obviously concerning, and I think there's going to be considerable inquiry into what could have been done better to prevent the attack and to secure the Capitol and stop the terrorists from breaching the grounds of the Capitol.
Senator, it seems as though when I was watching some of this and hearing some of the testimony that and seeing some of the news reports, that this was pre-planned, it was pre-coordinated, something that we've heard before, that this did not just pop up as a result of President Trump speaking on January 6th. There wwere Democrats and some Republicans accusing you and Josh Hawley and others of insurrection as well, and that you guys were responsible somehow for the attack on the Capitol. Was anything ever brought up about that at all, or was this a pre-planned event that was being planned for what sounds like weeks?
Well, I think what you're pointing to is a lot of the extreme partisan rhetoric that we have seen from Democrats and some in the media. I can tell you what the testimony today from law enforcement was that this was a pre-planned, very closely coordinated terrorist attack, that the people who were assaulting the Capitol had tactical gear, had equipment, had chemicals, had earpieces, and were in communication, and it was a planned assault. The chief of the Capitol Police testified it was unlike anything he'd seen in 3 decades of law enforcement, that it was much more, and here I'm putting words in his mouth, but this is the essence of his testimony, it was much more like a military assault than a protest or even a riot. And I think I'm glad the Department of Justice is prosecuting some 200 people that they've identified who committed acts of violence, and I think we need to track down those who broke the law and committed acts of violence, and they need to be fully prosecuted and spend a long time in jail. And anyone who planned or coordinated this terrorist assault should likewise spend a long time in jail.
Visiting with U.S. Senator Ted Cruz today. You've also been very busy hearing from some of the different selections by President Joe Biden. Merrick Garland, his testimony yesterday puzzled me a few times when he was asked by one of your colleagues about illegal immigration and crossing the border illegally. Should that remain something that's illegal? And he didn't seem to know what was going on with that. He seemed to have said something to the effect of, "Well, I've never thought about that." Was there anything concerning that you came across with Merrick Garland?
Well, there certainly were things that were concerning, and I will admit that the confirmation hearing for Judge Garland yesterday was frustrating. On the positive side, on the plus side, Judge Garland is someone who spent 23, 24 years as a federal appellate judge. He has built a reputation for integrity. He does not have a reputation for being overly partisan, so that is all good compared to some of the extreme partisans that Joe Biden could have nominated for Attorney General. It may be that Merrick Garland is an improvement over some of the choices Biden could have gone with. That being said, Judge Garland answers at the hearing. He consistently refused to answer just about everything. So as you noted, he was asked, would the Department of Justice continue to prosecute people who cross the border illegally? He refused to answer that question. He was asked, would he agree not to fire Special Prosecutor John Durham, who is prosecuting the political targeting and the abuse of Operation Crossfire Hurricane? And he refused to make that commitment. And on issue after issue after issue, he didn't give a straight answer. And I don't know how much of that is because he's been a judge for a long time and he's used to asking questions and not answering questions. But it was a disappointing performance for a nominee to be the chief law enforcement officer for the United States.
Yeah. I've got a couple more questions that I want to get to, and one of them is regarding your call to investigate Governor Andrew Cuomo, the governor up in New York. Why does there need to be an investigation into his actions?
Well, it's been very concerning in recent weeks. A senior official that on Governor Cuomo's staff has publicly admitted to covering up the facts, to covering up the data about the COVID deaths, and in particular, the policy that Governor Cuomo had early on in the beginnings of the pandemic of sending COVID-positive patients into nursing homes, and that proved to be a catastrophic policy, and we saw thousands or even tens of thousands of people lose their lives in nursing homes. The exact data are not clear because what the senior official admitted to is that they covered up the data and hid the numbers. So we don't know what the numbers are, but I have called for the Judiciary Committee to conduct an investigation because what the aide admitted to is that they were lying to avoid a Department of Justice investigation. And yesterday I asked Merrick Garland if he would commit to the Department of Justice investigating this cover-up. And once again, that was another question he refused to answer.
You would think that would be an automatic yes, that we should get answers to that, and that the people of New York would want answers to that, right?
You would certainly think so. And one of the things that was disquieting yesterday is that Judge Garland was willing to answer in the affirmative when Democrats asked if he would investigate things. But if a Republican asked, he dodged the question. And one of the more surreal moments of the hearing is when Judge Garland made the argument that the repeated violent attacks on the courthouse in Portland and the multiple physical assaults and injuries of law enforcement officers, that did not qualify as terrorism because he said it occurred at night, and so the courthouse was not in operation at the time. I got to say that's a really loopy answer, and it was concerning because it sure seemed like he was following partisan talking points rather than bringing an impartial approach to law enforcement.
Yeah. Visiting with U.S. Senator Ted Cruz here on the Chad Hasty Show. Senator, before I let you leave, and I got to be honest, I know that you're probably sick and tired of talking about Cancun, Mexico. I think you've explained it the best that you could, and I think it's been blown way out of proportion. Today, I did think you hit on something, and you said that a lot of this is the media is obsessed with this trip because they're suffering from Trump withdrawal. But I want to ask you just on a personal level, do you think the media has gone way too far on this personally, and that this is a personal, almost in a going after your family? I mean, you've got 2 little girls, you've got a wife. The media stayed behind. You came back home. You went to Texas, and they stayed on the beach in Cancun taking pictures of your family. Is this the media just going way, way, way too far on this type of issue?
Of course it is, and they're filled with partisan hatred, and they're not hiding it anymore. And it's the hyper politicized world during the age of Trump and in the aftermath of the Trump presidency, where the media is just in constant attack mode. Look, Texas last week came through a very difficult week. Obviously, we had 2 serious winter storms that impacted the entire state. 4 million Texans lost power. And Heidi and I were among them. Our home lost power for 2 days. We had no power, no heat. The hot water went out. All the water went out. And like millions of Texans, we had to deal with taking care of our family. And what happened with the trip is that our daughters and some of their classmates from school proposed, why don't we go somewhere where it's warm and where we have power? And school was canceled, and so their schedule allowed that. And so Heidi and I said yes, and we took them. And listen, in hindsight, it was clearly a mistake. It gave ammunition to those who want to engage in political attacks. And, both before the trip and during the trip and after the trip, I was working and engaged and on the phone and on email and doing my job remotely, as I've been doing for much of the past year during COVID.
Right.
But it was a mistake, and then the media has gone crazy with it, and apparently it is now a national shock that Heidi and I took our kids to the beach. It was foolish because it allowed an opportunity to launch attacks, but I think the media's behavior has been pretty ridiculous.
Well, I think so, and I think that, I mean, I'm sorry, but they're taking pictures of your wife, and then they're taking pictures of your kids, and and you're not there. I would think it would drive any, I'm sure it drives you as a husband and father just absolutely crazy with some of these news organizations out there. But I just, to me, this is the type of thing that drives good people too, by the way, out of politics, is that they don't want to put their family through that.
No, I think that's absolutely right. And it's, listen, I've asked for it. I ran for office. I represent 29 million people, and so I have a responsibility to answer questions, and some of that taking criticism and taking grief goes with that. But the press should leave your family alone, should leave your wife and kids alone, and I do not think the press has behaved well in how they've handled this.
Did you at least get to hear the mariachi music outside your home?
Well, we weren't home. I heard a little bit of it on the internet. They actually sounded pretty good.
I bet they did. Senator Cruz, appreciate your time today. Let's visit again soon, and we wish you the best up in D.C.
Well, back at you. Thanks for everything you do, Chad, and we'll talk soon.
All right, thank you. That's U.S. Senator Ted Cruz here on the Chad Hasty Show on the Texas Town Square Media Network.